But there we go. Okay. Number 2, there was a question about getting started in working with your APTEL and under APTEL, the first one, task 1. Now, as I said earlier on, I'm not really supposed to mess with you and your APTEL, but I'm going to read to you out of the handbook, and then I'm going to offer you some hints as to where I would go to get started. Okay, so let's suppose for conversation, you're working with, I'd like to say I'm making this one up, but this is one of your students in the group had this as her topic. I've already given away one hint, it's a she. And the topic was they're wanting to increase test scores or whatever by increasing parental involvement with the school. Okay, now this is the perfect time. I don't know what your background has been in the past about doing research, and I'm going to, after I make those changes on Blackboard about making up those groups, I will type out these search engines, even though we're going to talk about them tonight. In the educational research, they're probably a good 10 or 15 good ones. And more have been developed in probably the last 5 to 10 years than ever before. The gold standard that was 10 years ago was ERIC. So what you would do is go to ERIC. Now, all this stuff can be gotten into by going into the library at Gardner Webb and then using that search engine, and it will take you to different abstracts, whether it's a full-blown article or a dissertation, and some are actually peer-reviewed. But let me go over that list quickly, but I'm going to give it to you in print. Google Scholar is a great one. Google Books, ERIC. There's an interesting one called iSeek, I-S-E-E-K. This one is RefSeek, R-E-F-S-E-E-K. And then there is one called VLRC, or Virtual Learning Resource Center. And then there's Infotopia, just like it's spelled, and ProQuest. All of these are great search engines. So to the person who was wanting to work with an activity to increase student achievement by way of increasing parental contact, you would put increased student achievement plus parental contact, and I would also add either North Carolina or United States, because you're going to get a lot of studies from different countries around the world. Now, don't get yourself in a tizzy. You can try one or the other or 2 or 3, but there's a lot of stuff out there. If it's too much or if it's too finite, then back up and just put increased student performance by parent contact or something like that. But if you just put increased student performance, you probably get about 15 billion hits. Way too much. It'd take you a bunch of time to scroll down, read the abstracts, decide if that's what you want. And just be cautious as you start looking at that kind of stuff. I'll talk about the APTEL in task 1, but as I told this individual, her best resource is to go back to her clinical coach, especially if they have not switched over. Have you gotten any information? I realize I think I said week 4, and we're only in week 3, correct? So my guess is they haven't switched yet, but I would definitely make contact with your clinical coach as it relates to the APTEL task 1.
So can I just say, I spoke to our clinical coach and he said he's going to be with us. He didn't know anything about that.
Well, he's not reading the emails from Dr. Neal. You know, when
Dr. who?
Dr. Gerald Neal.
Okay.
He's in charge of the MELS program. And it was, I mean, Nadine, it's very specific when he says after about the 4th week,
Right.
the clinical coaches 1 will be replaced by a CC2. I'm just going off of what he's sending. That may have changed, but and that's okay. So I noticed y'all, some of you are doing your work. You're answering your questions, and you'll notice I typically respond by saying thank you, and then I will add all were correct, or if there are some differences from what I have found, I put the correct answers there. And obviously, whether you missed one or you missed 9 or 10, you're still getting credit for working within that realm. And most of you are getting all of them correct, or you're only missing 1 or 2. Those chapters are interesting. 3 and 4 are more interesting because it talks about how to research and how to pull documents together to help you work on your problem or what you have at your school. And that's where you should be working on. So don't spend a lot of time, but basically what I'm not going to be able to tell you, because I'm not a clinical coach, is you do a little research, you know what you want to work on, you find out, get a couple of articles that they used where you can actually list, okay, for someone to be efficient in increasing grades by way of parental contact, you'll develop a checklist. And I believe that's covered. It says, do a research study reflecting teacher empowerment and leadership. Forget those big words. Just go conduct a research study using best practices where you're going to develop a checklist. Does this teacher do this? Does this teacher do that? Does this teacher do that kind of stuff? And then you can sort of figure out, well, you got this teacher who, didn't y'all have was that in Wake County where you had a principal went to all the elementary school kids in her elementary school? Did I read that last?
Middle school.
Yeah. She went to all of her students' schools back, I think was that in the fall or the spring or something? I think it started in the fall, where she went to every child's home, sat down and met with the parent and that kind of stuff. That was sort of a gutsy move, but that was the best way to break the ice in her school community. So you're going to find out, and that may not be what you're looking for, but that person who threw out that question, you're going to develop a checklist, and you can compare this, and this. And then when you go through, you'll say, yes, this person does this. Yes, this person does that. So my guess is you picked up on the fact that using that checklist, you can determine in a type of study where you're going to deal with numbers and not quality, but quantity. You got 60% of your faculty, they're communicating with their parents weekly. You got 20% of your faculty that are communicating with their parents once a month, whatever. But it's going to be the data that you pull off of that information, either through a walkthrough, give them a survey, something like that. How often do you contact the parents, either for positive or negative? Does it appear to have any kind of lasting effect or change? That kind of stuff. That's sort of what somebody should be telling you. Nadine, I want to back up. You said your clinical coach hadn't got that information. May I ask who? I've got it on a file, but do you know? Well, of course you know. Do you mind telling me who that was? Now I get to say I can't hear you.
I know, but I realize that. All right. The clinical coach, is that what you asked for?
Yes.
It's Dr. Stedman.
Okay. Now Danny's getting the same emails I get, so he knows that's unless Dr. Neal has changed his plan, and maybe that has been. But if I can find that email, I'll send it to you, and then you can communicate with Dr.
Well, I believe you because I remember seeing or hearing or something.
Well, you know, he sent us that, and I wanted to tell you about that so that you wouldn't be caught into confusion. And then there was something that was said about my role versus their role and that kind of stuff. That came from Dr. Neal, but it was actually pushed out by Dr. Uri, who is Dr. Neal's boss. I sent you that email with the 2 links, didn't I? I'd rather over inform you than under, and then y'all start looking at me, well, why didn't you tell us this, or why didn't you tell you that? So I'm working on some bullets to cover the 4 tasks in the AppTel. I wanted to go ahead and give you the first one tonight, even though I'm not supposed to. I want to make sure you're all getting off, or you're not at that part where you're just sort of stumbling or whatever. Jeff, now I realize you don't have a horse in this race, but that's how this process is supposed to work. Anyway, Jeff's already done his AppTel. Okay, so let's talk about the only thing that you told me I need to do. Well, the thing that I've told you that I want you to do is load your city training, and I think I put it under week 1. I'm going to send you a list of these search engines that you can start messing with. I've talked to you briefly about the AppTel Task 1, and you've asked me to form those 4 groups on the left side of Blackboard with the 4 names so you can have access to get to them and start throwing your work that way. Until I get that done, let's see, Wednesdays, it could be Thursday. You can always send that to your people on your team in an email form. Yeah. But I should get to that this week, Thursday probably.
Dr. Bowen, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Abby.
I thought I was pretty good at technology, but I'm not finding anything on Blackboard except where to submit the chapter stuff. And I've clicked on almost every tab I can click on in it, and I'm only finding like week 1, chapter 1, week 2, chapter 2, or whatever. And I'm clicking on all of those to see if anything else is inside of those, but I'm still not finding where to submit other things.
Okay. When you go, see, I can't tell what you get to see on your where you upload your work. It goes from left to right. Under the very first place where you upload your work, what do you see for week 1?
It just says write submission. Like it says week 1 dash chapter 1. And so I click on it and it says write submission or upload. And so I write it and then it submits, and you can't do anything else in that week.
Now, I do know that out of that entire week, oh no, who threw this up? What, Jeff, was that you?
I was wondering if maybe I could just share my screen so you could see what I could see.
Okay, that would be very helpful.
I don't know how it works though.
Well, I saw it for a second. Okay, now, Jeff, come on down and you're going to go. Okay, now click on week 1 EVA.
Okay, it's showing
He's
just
showing
a screenshot that I submitted.
That's correct.
Okay.
But it doesn't see anything else where now.
Right. That's what we're seeing too. And then.
Okay, go to chapter 1, Jeff. Ooh, okay. Now, all right, go back out. Let me see the whole week stuff again. This is confusing. Okay, scroll on down, all the way down. Now, I did try to add a week. Wait a minute now. Hold up, cowboy.
I see 2 week 7s.
Okay, click on the first week 7.
So that's for a chapter?
That was for a chapter. You got chapter 11 and chapter 12. They were supposed to be in week 7.
Oh, okay. So there's 2.
There's 2.
There's a couple of them have 2.
Yes. Okay, scroll on down, Jeff, and let me see what else you got.
18, 19, then AppTel.
Let's see. Now, the only thing under the AppTel, which you've already done, you've loaded that up. Okay. Go back and let me see. Now, I don't know how often this stuff is refreshed, and I only did that this afternoon. Ab, you may have uncovered something that we hadn't planned on. So go under on the far left. Scroll on down, Jeff, if you will.
Sure.
You got 2 4s, 2 5s, 2 6s, 2 7s, 2 8s, 3 9s because that covers 3 chapters. You got chapter 10 for 18 and 19, and then the AppTel. Go back up a little bit, Jeff, and let me see. Well, I thought we lost you. Go ahead.
I don't know what that was.
Okay, how about clicking on chapter 1, week 2 again? Uh-huh. Okay. Well, I tell you what. You got me on this one. I'm not sure. How about my grades, Jeff? Do you mind clicking on that one? Okay, just come on down. You should, now in your case, you should be around 50 points. It's every. Okay, come on down a little bit more. Okay,
So,
click on, you see I've got some of those boxes twice. Let's see what that one says, Jeff.
I don't think I can click on these.
Oh,
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah, I tried.
I tried that too.
okay.
But it does, it duplicates all the chapter stuff.
Okay, hold on.
Grades are actually up here.
Okay. How
Sorry,
about,
I'm probably making you dizzy.
well, it's okay. Under the Zoom, how about the peer review, the Zoom session? Click on that. Can you open that up? See, I went ahead and gave you points since you won't be doing that.
Oh, here it's listed here. City assignment at the very bottom.
Okay, so
But that's
Well-
under grades. It's not under the actual course overview Blackboard.
Go up, stay down in grades, but go up to week 1, Jeff, if you would.
Okay, there's this week 1, I think. And then there's actually the one that was graded way up here.
Okay, come back down if you would, and go to. Okay, a little bit more. Click on the EVA under the second one, but you said you can't open that.
Yeah, I can't click on these. I
Hmm.
could just hover.
Okay. Well, let me see if I can mess with that. See, that sort of throws me for a spin because I'm putting this stuff out there, but you're not being able to get to it.
So is there a way to, like, you're creating it but not sharing it with us somehow?
Well, there's a button, Abby, where Nadine found out that I was grading her work, but I had that switch toggled off.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to untoggle it, and all your work popped up for your individual week. Let me go back through every week tonight and see if I can uncover that. I may send 1 or 2 of you an email over the weekend where you can let me see what you're seeing again if I can make some changes. But I do what?
Okay.
I was going to see, Jeff, can you open up your assignment 2? Your assignment week 2? I was having problems uploading mine.
This one?
Yes. Okay.
And for the, okay, let's see. Let me make sure I'm looking down your list of stuff, Jeff. It looks like I got it on the left. No. Okay. Where is it? Since I don't want to leave Abby out, but I want to. Do you have on the left side on Blackboard where Nadine, where someone was talking about the groups? Where is that?
So that's back on the main screen, Jeff. Do you know where I'm talking about?
No.
Okay, so go back to where just your Blackboard is, like not into the actual class.
It used to be on this left side too.
Was it on this one too, Abby?
Yeah.
I know it's still on mine, but I don't know how to show my screen. I don't know how to do that. Sorry. Oh, yeah. Scroll down. Scroll down if you can, Jeff.
Yep.
All right. It's not. Now, see, it's on mine. So what if you go ahead and click onto your course, this, whatever your, yeah, there you go, that. Now scroll down on your left. Is there an arrow? See, yours doesn't have it. There was an arrow with a drop down here that,
What area is it under? Course content and activity?
It used to be on that left side, like under course content, that's a bold heading, and there would be another section and it would say group 1. We were in group 1.
I got you.
and mine still says it because I just tried it at about 5 o'clock because I thought maybe I could create it so that we could submit our rough drafts there so that because we're Zooming this week.
Okay.
So I couldn't do it, so.
Yeah. Well, that's where I will start by setting up those 3 groups. And I'll follow up with an email to that. And I'll see what the deal is with those assignments where you can't load them up because according to my page, I have everything out there for you to look at. That's not good. Oh, well, I got a couple of hurdles to deal with, but let's talk a little bit of some of the information that you will be using out of Chapter 3 and Chapter 4. Out of Chapter 3, did you gather any information about, like, if you're at an elementary school and possibly a middle or maybe a high, do you deal with anything that deals with cooperative learning? And do you feel if it's helpful or beneficial to a below average student and an above average student? What are you thinking about that? And that was covered in Chapter 3. And while you're thinking about that answer, let's open up the can of worms about homework. Marzano wrote 2 good positions on homework, one for homework and one opposed to homework. What do you, that it's, and by definition, homework is something that's done outside of your classroom. What do you think about that? Beneficial or not?
Homework being beneficial
or not beneficial.
Personally, like with this is Kevin, because I know I just have a blank screen.
I got the voice down.
But all right, cool. Personally, I think that homework is not that beneficial in certain areas.
Okay.
Yes, we can actually always tell a child to go home and read,
okay,
but a lot of times, what are they reading for? How are we guiding them through it? And sometimes we face the problem with their parents can't even help them. So if we have a struggling student that needs a little bit of assistance, where do we go with that? I think that maybe mathematics can be beneficial, but I don't believe like ELA's homework is that beneficial because we really have to get them to think differently, when it comes to actually looking at, what the question is actually saying. A lot of times they don't even understand the vocabulary. So even if they go home and they use a dictionary, are they really understanding it? We need to model it. They can't get modeling. So I don't think it's that beneficial.
I understand. Now, you mentioned math. I mean, is it beneficial to give them, and it's all directed at different grade levels versus a kindergarten, first grade, or third grader versus an 8th or 9th grade or something like that. The question is, do you give them maybe 5 problems that you've covered in class that you'd like to see that they can replicate what you taught them? Is it the smaller number but a variety of activities, or is it just give them 20 or 30 problems to do? Is either one of those examples beneficial?
So my opinion
I think,
that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Nope. Go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just can't see anybody talking. So go ahead, Nadine.
Okay. Thank you. So my opinion is if you give them a little bit, can they do just to practice what you were teaching in class? Give them enough to say, yes, I could do it, but you're not going to give them 30 problems.
No.
At that point, you're beating a dead horse because they either know the first few or they don't. So why upset them? Why upset their parents? They're in elementary school, and that's what I'm teaching.
I understand that.
So that point, leave them be. If they got it in the first 5, good for you, Johnny. Go play now.
I got it. Right. And then, of course, if you see a child struggling or a parent's telling you, child's crying at the kitchen table and he's staying up till 9 or 10 o'clock at night and he's only in 2nd grade, what's the deal here? What is the deal?
Well,
great question.
Well, what is the deal if after my thought process, and I've said this to some parents, if after 20 minutes they can't do it, stop, send a note in, let us help them again, let us try again, let us reteach it, you know, whatever the case may be, and then let them try it again. Does it happen? Oh, no.
Yeah.
Well, I also teach elementary, and I agree that you do send home homework. I mean, not in abundance. They don't need 50 problems. And I feel the same way with testing. There's no need to give them 50 math problems on a test. Give them 5. If they can't do 5, they can go and get it. So
right.
homework is useful, but if you do it the right
my
way.
My thing with you saying that you send homework home, how do you know who does it? Yeah, we can assume that a child is doing it on their own. But I've seen the majority of the things that I've sent home, parents have done 90% of it. And yeah, we're going to grade them for, you know, their parents helping them. Yeah, we understand that that's not what we're expecting. So you're going to call them on it, and then that's going to be a bigger issue. I don't know. For me, when a child is actually going home to do homework, my biggest thing is, if they don't get it, are we going to grade them for the effort, or are we going to grade them for being correct? If they get it and they can't replicate that on any other test or any other situation in your class, like, what good did that help? So I mean, we're hoping that it would do that. We're hoping that it helped, but in ELA, we're not actually trying to figure out if they remember definitions. You know, we're trying to really get them to think about certain things, and not every word, like, how does such and such impact the plot? They don't even understand impact. So I don't understand how that.
I think that goes back to using, you could say, your cooperative learning, small groups, where if I'm pulling a small group with kids who we're going over homework and they can't explain to me how that they got that answer and they don't show any work, then that tells me there, did you use a calculator? Who helped you? Who did it for you? Right. So at that point, I can say, okay, well, you don't know it or you do, so we need to do something different.
What about, I know this is going out on a limb a little bit, but if y'all still do science fair projects where everything is done outside the school, and a project comes in that looks like it came from Harvard.
The more I teach, the more I don't like homework or science projects, because it's the kids who are doing homework and the science projects who don't need to.
Right.
And the kids who need the practice, they don't have the support at home. So why send homework home? Because they come to school knowing that they couldn't do it because they didn't.
Yeah, and it just beats them down a little bit more every time. Now,
our science projects are optional simply because of finance.
Right.
A lot of parents can't afford to go buy the materials needed to build these projects, so we have to make it optional.
Oh, I got that. Now, we're going back to research for just one more topic. Let's suppose you look up a book. Well, you can use your textbook as a prime example. There's a big difference between a primary source and a secondary source. Okay, so this guy, say the author of this book, has written all these chapters, and then what I'm trying to tell you is this individual's work in chapter 1 through 19, he has created a secondary source. So then you look down at the end of the chapter and you'll see where he got all his information from. And then you go back and you Google the different articles, the different books, the different position papers, the dissertations, whatever. Those would become primary sources. I want to make sure you understand that. So you can either refer to a primary source, which is basically direct from the horse's mouth, or you can read the condensed or the enhanced version, if you would, from a secondary source, chapter 1 through 19. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure you understand as you go through chapter 3 and 4, the big picture from a primary source and a secondary source. Suppose you're looking in this chapter and something grabs your interest, then you flip back to the end on their reference page, and then you Google that activity under one of those search engines, and you should be able to pull up the abstract from that primary source. That's where you get more, if that's such a phrase, you get better information. It has less area for weakness. The last thing I want to ask you, and this is a hot topic, and then I'm going to tell you my experiences in working with the charter school. Do you think they can outperform public schools, a charter school, not a parochial school, but a charter school? What's that? Go ahead. I mean, y'all are public school teachers. I hope you have somewhat of the same thing.
I got plenty to say. I'm just saying that Go ahead, McCray. I was just going to say that
It's not me.
Okay. I was just going to say that at our school, we have a high charter school turnover. Like they go there in August, but come January, they back at the public school.
I understand. So, that's typical, Nicole.
Okay. McCray, you can have it.
Yep, that's typical. Because at the charter school, they don't put up with a bunch of stuff. If it's not a behavior issue or they're not getting what they want, they'll come back to their home school. What about the rest of you? Is there one or more?
I think that a charter school.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was saying I think that a charter school should be able to outperform, because from what I think about Ron Clark School. It's not really a charter school, I guess, that we're looking at, but to me it seems like it is. And he handpicks his kids.
Right.
So I think that because a lot of charter schools are new, they're not being able to handpick kids because they're trying to get enrollment in. But if they could, then I would think it looks different. But on the front end of it, I don't think it's possible.
Now, one of my jobs in working with DPI was to go out and do an assessment of certain LEAs or school systems. And then once we got all 115 of those completed, there were 8 of us going out in groups of 2. Then we started with the charter schools. I went into one in the eastern part of the state, and we were verifying what degrees or licenses and things like that these individuals had. And this principal looked across the table at me as I was flipping through these books, and I noticed this young lady teaching, it was an elementary charter school, and I said, I need to talk to her. She had a license, but it was from, what do you call that, beauty school or what? Do what?
Cosmetology?
Yeah, she had a degree in cosmetology. Now, there were some times on these experiences where I had to step out and get on my cell phone and call my boss in Raleigh and go, we may have a problem, because what we were doing was tied to federal funds. So, those things they didn't go for when those irregularities would pop up. I mean, everybody had to have, remember that big brouhaha back 10 years ago when everybody had to be highly qualified? And if you weren't, you had to do some things to become highly qualified. You remember that one? Mm-hmm. Well, when she had that, and most school systems now, since we have screened all that and cleaned all that up, if you go on either, I think it's the school report card when it talks about the number of HQ teachers. Most school systems, that's all they have. But sometimes there's some things that hop through the loops that sort of jump out at you. And, they were doing the best they could. She may have actually been a great teacher, and the kids did well with her and her leadership and academic skills. But that license from cosmetology school didn't cut it. And they had to send him a letter saying he had a year or something like that to clean that mess up. I don't know what they did. Or the greatest thing that they can do in North Carolina is to withhold state funds. You don't realize how much money is flowing electronically every month across this state. In Wake County, you people get your teacher salaries. You think you get that? You get a 10 or 12 month chunk of money from Raleigh at the beginning of the school year? No. They send it out a chunk at a time every month. Now, why would you think that? A couple of reasons. What? They don't have all that money up front. They're waiting, like money coming in, money coming out. But the other issue is, if you do something hinky with your reports, your scores, your grades, whatever, they will create an irregularity and withhold funds for that month. Now, how many superintendents want to stop the flow of money coming into your school system? That would be a fate worse than death, and more than likelihood, some people are going to be fired. When school administrators start making up these rules as they go on the fly, and they alter certain records, and they do this and do that, and they get caught, that's when it turns ugly, and they turn off the financial stream. And then somebody has to clean that mess up and get it back on within a week, or those funds do stop. And most school systems can't afford that. Absolutely not. So I didn't know what you thought about charter schools, but they don't go by all of the same rules as a regular public school. Some are good, some are not. Some have been closed. I don't know if we're up to 125 or not now, but they come and they go. There's certain ones that have been in existence from day one, and they're still going strong, and it's just an avenue. But like Nicole said, they'll get mad over something at your school. They will leave and go to a charter school. They may last a semester. They're going to get mad at something else, and they're coming back. And then you have to deal with, more than likely, that child is behind. Is that sort of a fair guess, Nicole? That the child comes back and they haven't advanced as much as they should have, or maybe they have. I don't know. Usually it's they're behind. And they come back to you in your building, and then you've got to jump around and try to get them caught up before May. And that's typical. That's typical. That goes on all the time. Either the parent pulls them out, or something has happened at the school and they're invited to leave. But this is North Carolina. We are a public school system. Just like those people at the Statue of Liberty, we take everybody. We take everybody and we work with who we have. All right, last thing, I want to make sure I got my homework assignment for the next couple of days. I'm going to send you the actual spelling of those search engines. I'm going to go to Blackboard and create the 3 groups with your names. And then I'm going to mess around with the assignment page and see what I have done. Where, like in Abby's case, now, Abby, you've mentioned this twice, that you couldn't get to a certain thing in an activity that only showed one thing. And that's when I tried to stretch it out into week 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. I didn't know that worked or not, but I'm going to have to revisit that, and that'll be the third thing. What questions have you got? Have I given you any enlightenment as far as getting started with your AppTel task 1? Figure out what you're working on, what your PLC decided supposedly in the app cell. Look at some research or some abstracts. If you think you're going to do a research project, even on a small scale, that's never been done before, then you're probably going to get your degree from Mars. Most educational research has already been done. What you're going to do is look at it and then tweak it a little bit to fit your particular situation at your school. So there's stuff out there. You just have to dig around and look for it and find it. Depending on if I get Abby, I may pull you in, and Nadine. Nadine, you said yours was Dr. Stedman. Abby, who was your clinical coach?
Same as Nadine.
Oh, okay, that's even better. I may send you an email and see if y'all are available for Sunday afternoon. because I want to get this part about Abby's. This is her second time mentioning this, and I thought I had cleaned it, but it didn't work, and I didn't know about that Blackboard deal about forming your groups, but I want to make sure I get that cleared up. I may say if it's okay about 3, 4, or whatever o'clock, and we sort of catch back up, and then Abby, can you go online like Nadine? What you waving at me for? What?
Well, I was just gonna ask, like, if we could do either later in the evening.
Just tell me what time.
All right, good, because like we're booked with graduation parties because my son's friends and everything. I don't know, Abby, are you working this weekend too?
Yeah, later would be good.
7, 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Which one, Abby? I'm
like 8 would be better.
8 o'clock. Okay, I will just pick 2 of you.
So,
and I just want to make sure that I can figure out what Abby's asking. I know what she's asking. I just need to figure out how to get it back. And then I want to make sure that are you 2 in the same group?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And we're seeing the same thing or not seeing the same thing.
Okay. That's good. I'll start with you 2, and then hopefully I can get these 3 things resigned as far as fixing them by Tuesday. Okay. What questions so far?
I have a question about, I don't want to open a can of worms that lasts for 30 minutes, but I do have a question that might require not a short answer.
Okay.
But it's not something that has to be answered tonight. It's just something that I'm wondering.
Okay.
As I've started, I'm almost done with task 1 for Absol. And as I've started it, I actually don't see the connection between, no, not Absol. I'm having a hard time finding the connection between the Absol and the Aptil that you're talking about. At first, I thought there would be a bigger connection, but now, like, what I do see is how we're moving from more of student achievement and how teachers.
All right, well, let me ask you this question, Abby. What was in your focus group, and this could affect all of you, is to go from the Absol to the Aptil. What was your study group's, your PLC, what was their focus in the Absol? What did y'all want to work on?
Oh my God, I know this. My head is so jumbled with the Aptil right now. We wanted to raise proficiency in reading by 10% specifically for the Black male subgroup.
Okay, first of all, I don't know how to say this. I don't know that.
No, I know what you're going to say.
What's I going to say?
Are you going to talk about how limited I was in that?
No, I would have never said 10%. I would have said we want to increase the performance of this activity, and not said.
Well, so it was 10% over 3 years, and I actually am on SIP, and I helped create our SIP goals, which that's one of the SIP goals. So
Perfect.
Since I had already done research, I went ahead and piggybacked off of that.
Okay.
But here's my question. This is to not open, and please don't tell me I'm understanding the Aptil wrong, or I might cry right here. I'm done. So I've been doing the research on Aptil, and right now I've moved from more of like a view of administration, like an administrator's perspective, researching the best practices to empower teachers.
Okay. Are you going to, when you do your measurement or develop your checklist, are you going to look at to see what the administrator is doing and how he or she influences the classroom teacher? Or are you going to take it down to the level of they've been told these are some activities, are they using them or not, and talk about that? Where are you headed with that? I mean, it could go either way. It's how you want to deal with it.
So I'm not reading task 1 as being particular in that area. I don't know if that moves into task 2. The only particular thing I see is the checklist for evaluating teachers. And as I've done research, there's not one, you really can't evaluate you can't do a true evaluation on a quality teacher, but you can do multiples, not only administrators, but peers as well. But I'm not seeing like a specific goal for that. Does that make sense?
It does. And what I'm trying to get to is, have you done the research to the point where you know what needs to take place to create that change? Has that been established?
I have about 40 million things in my head right now with that, so I'm still thinking through that. But yes, I'm getting there.
Okay, and is that the checklist that you're looking at, is that something from the administrator's viewpoint or the classroom teacher's viewpoint?
I think I'm going to do both.
Okay. Now, are you going to be able to use the teachers in the building, or how many administrators, how are you going to corral them?
What do you mean?
Well, I don't know how large your school is. You've got a principal and then the assistant principals. You may even have someone in a leadership position like a curriculum coach or someone like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not quite sure, whether they agree with it or not. This is your proposal. You and your PLC decided you wanted to increase this over 3 years by 10%. Now, in your research, you've come across several things that you're in theory could implement, and to see if the teachers, as you develop your checklist, they're doing this, they're doing that, they're doing this, or they're not doing that kind of stuff. If that
so this checklist should empower teachers in their classrooms to be able to meet the goals and improve student achievement based on what I did in APSL. Oh, that is not the impression I had at all, but that's good.
Now, what kind, and I'm not opening up this can of worm because I don't want to compare to Dr. Stedman, and believe me or not, I consider Dr. Danny a friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
Has he talked to you about your PLC work and how you developed and set it up? I mean,
yeah.
That sounds great. I don't know about the administrative side as to the checklist you could develop, but I can see you coming up with some standard practices that a teacher could use to raise those test scores at a certain percent over a certain time. I can see that actually being written up.
Oh, no. That's what I was going to write up. I thought you were talking about administrators using it.
No. I don't know why. Now, okay. I interrupted you and you said about administrators using it.
So the checklist.
The checklist is for you to develop, showing that the teachers are using your suggested activities, and if it does increase their performance. Now, the problem is, as you go through this activity, and see, you've already piggybacked on an activity you said your SIT team had already gotten involved with 1 or more years back, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's a great thing. It really is. All you need to do is just replicate the process and look at some of the research of what y'all are using to put this program into place. Does this have a name, this program?
No.
Oh, y'all, okay, that's okay. But where did the research come from for them to decide this is what we want to do at our school and here's why it's going to be helpful? How did they determine that? The SIT
Are
team?
you talking about what we used from Task One or from APSL?
Well, let me make sure I got this correct. Your APSL was developed as a spin-off of your SIT committee.
Yes.
Okay, by way of your PLC.
Yes.
Okay. There should have been something in the research. Is every elementary school doing this program that y'all are using, or just your school?
So are you talking about like the action plan that we created?
Yes.
So I think and if anybody can help me, if anybody's understanding it differently and I'm just confusing myself, I just really truly don't understand how APTL, and I haven't connected it back to my APSL yet.
Okay, in simplest terms, and I may be wrong, but I don't think I am. You and your PLC developed, forget the work with the SIT team and what y'all had already in place. You and your PLC developed and looked at some things, and you said, is it reading or what's the issue? Reading or reading?
Reading.
Okay, so you said, okay, we got something going on. We need to improve our reading scores, and that's what we want to focus on for the next so many years for so much of a percent. In the APTEL, you're going to look at the best practices as you connect to helping your, oh, you hopped over to the right. Okay, so in the APTEL, what you want to do is say, okay, we decided that this reading program needs some help. Let's do some research and find something that supports what we're doing, and then you're going to develop a checklist. I would suggest you talk this over with the other three in your group is number one, and number two, send Dr. Stedman an email. But I think I'm on point here. From what your PL said, we want to do reading. PLC said, okay, we got some reading issues we want to work on to increase our test scores. Then you come back and look at what the research says and try to implement one or two of those studies as y'all develop the checklist. If the word administrator threw you off, don't pay. That's not. They have nothing to do with this.
So can I ask a question? Try and reiterate or restate?
It's probably a good idea, Nadine. Yeah.
All right. So here, Abby, this is kind of what I'm getting from this. So because we were thinking the same way, she and I.
Okay.
So what I'm thinking is if you take my PLC team, what we decided to do last semester was to increase our special ed test scores by 10%. We apparently like that number. So what I'm going to do is create a checklist as if I'm the administrator walking through a classroom, seeing if our teachers are doing what we set out to do in the APTEL.
Correct.
Is that part correct?
That's how I see this. There's a connection between the APTEL and the APTEL.
For the checklist. Now,
yes.
We keep moving. Part two, what I'm trying to understand is the part where we are actually writing the paper and doing the research and everything like that. Like, for example, I have the rubric in front of me because I've been working on it. It says building efficacy and empowerment among staff. So that I'm looking at almost differently, saying this is how, as an administrator, I can build or I can empower other teachers to do whatever it is.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes. This is what, Abby, as an administrator, here's what you'd like to see take place. And then you develop this checklist. And then you, as the one who's pushing or developing this program, you would go by and either do a survey or observe or something like that down the road, let me repeat that again, to see that they're doing what the checklist said it would do. Like they're doing this, scripted reading, they're doing this, they're doing that.
So by down the road, because like, for example, like I said, in my situation, and I hate to keep you all on this, but to explain this better, maybe it'll help everybody, is so what we were going to do is interventionists, special ed, and special ed TAs, we were going to do on extra time going above and beyond IEP requirements to push in to other classrooms. So I don't have per se a checklist for the teacher. I mean, my checklist is going to be a little bit more, I guess, vague, if you will, because I'm saying, okay, did you push in? Yes. How did our scores show? Is that correct?
Absolutely. Because what you say, what I've heard you say, I hate to do this reflective listening, you wanted to increase the time of that EC child in a regular classroom or with a specialist or something in the EC program. What did you want?
When the EC child, so what we were increasing is testing scores by 10% over across the board for all EC students. Okay. While the EC students are in the general ed class, okay, EC teachers, TAs, interventionists, and specialists would go in.
Okay, so what you could do as a quantitative study dealing with numbers, this teacher or this support team was in there 30 minutes more than they should have been, 60 minutes more than they should have been, an hour and a half than they should have been kind of stuff, and did it make a difference in the child's improving test scores or results?
Right, okay.
Are we with Jeff? Didn't mean to make you jump. If you're a support person for how many elementary schools?
How many elementary schools?
Or how many schools do you have?
17.
Okay. And as an intervention specialist, what do you do?
I work primarily with adults, so I work mostly with the teachers and teams of teachers to develop plans for either individual students that are struggling academically or behaviorally, or sometimes if there's a core problem, we'll do it for like a large group of students.
Okay. Didn't know if I could tie what you do to Nadine's situation, but Nadine, you're on point. If you're giving this child some increased time by additional support by 60 minutes a week, 2 hours a week, stuff like that, and then see if there's any change in performance over a period of time, that would be, you'd have your checklist, and then as you get to the third activity, I think I don't want to swear if it's the OMA or whatever the third one is. The third one's going to tell you, chart what you've done and did it increase the performance, something like that. Okay. You're right on point. And Abby, I don't know if this is helping you at all or not, because she's got herself set out for, if they increase the support time, will it make a change in this EC child's performance? I can see that correlation, and it would be a numbers game. You won't be able to show quality, but you'll be able to show quantity. 60 minutes a week extra, it equates to 2% of growth or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Better, not better? Yeah.
No, what she just explained is what I was saying too, so I'm fine.
Oh, okay.
That was what I was.
I don't want you to get twisted. I mean, evidently Nadine and I figured out what she's doing makes sense. I sort of thought what you were doing made sense, but you kept wanting to pull in an administrator's viewpoint. And I'm thinking if you were sitting in that chair, this is what you would do.
I'm speaking administrator from me, like, because I'm writing my APTL from an administrator's point of view, because that's.
And
I think I just got confused because we were talking about task 2, and I'm just not there yet.
Okay. Keep in mind, this is like your student teaching for your master's in ed administration. So when you start applying, and what are you in Wake County, Abby?
Yes.
Okay. When you get an interview for an AP or a principal slot or wherever you're headed next, you're going to want to talk about, okay, here's what we discovered. Here's what we wanted to implement over a couple of years to raise our scores up by 10%, and here's how we propose to do it. You need to sort of give something that I'm just not here to count the books and check off the buses and silly stuff like that. You've got to be able to give them a real world experience as to what you had implemented or what you plan to implement and how did it work or not work based on your research work. That's the key.
That makes sense.
Absolutely. It's no more taking 5 or 10 classes and answering a bunch of questions in a blue book. This is like a real world life experience as to what you did, what you wanted to do, and did it make a change? That's what they're looking for. Someone who can come in and make some changes based on some data or research. Every school is different. You go by and look at them on the school report card or the teacher working conditions survey, and they may be some of the same similar things, but they're going to look at, a simple one is teacher turnover. If you have a turnover rate at your school of 50 or 60%, you got a problem somewhere. I'm not sure what it is. If it's the climate of the school in general, the location in the community, the building administrators in general, what? But when you get close to 50%, 50 to 60%, you got a problem. It should be down in the teens or in the 20s, percent-wise. And people look for that kind of stuff. Why is this school like this? Why is this school like that? That's a good question. I'm glad to see you and Nadine are you got the same concept. All right, let me write that down. We said Sunday about 8 o'clock. Okay? All right, I'll send it out to everybody. Let's don't be the have and the have-nots, but I need to have a couple from the same team because I want to make sure I get a couple of things done. But I'll send it at 8 o'clock. If you want to jump on board and see where we are and what we're doing, that's great. if we do another one, I'm going to pick 2 more people from a different, again, Nadine, you 2 are on the same team, correct?
Abby and I?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So the next time I pull this, I will get 2 people from a different team just to make sure they're there, and then everybody can still jump on board. But I want to retool some of this stuff and get it fixed. All right?
Okay, so we're just going to go over the things, basically what we asked that we couldn't see and stuff.
That is correct. That's one of the things I want to work on.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Unless something happens, I will send this link out. This laptop is not the fastest in the world, but I'm going to send out this meeting sometime tonight or in early morning, but I'll get it out and we'll go from there. Plus, I will send the actual spelling of the list of those research engines. And I'm sure you've looked at the primary and secondary sources, but using those search engines to narrow it down. They are teacher and educator friendly. They're not people working on the science degree in chemistry or physics. They are teacher friendly with what you deal with and want to deal with every day of the week. Okay, that was interesting. Anything else before I hit the end button? Okay. All right, guys.
We lost everybody.
Do what?
I think we lost everybody.
Well, we lost. Well, you know, I know his microphone's cut off, but when he peeled off that, hey, what?
Sorry for going off on a tangent.
No. You were on point, Abby. You had a great question, and I'm glad Nadine and I sort of in a tag team to sort of get it cleaned up. But I will see some or most of you on Sunday, and then we'll still have class next Tuesday. Have a great. Everybody in the end of grade or end of course testing this week? Yeah.
I'm a year-round, so I don't ever get off.
Oh, you're a year-round school.
And I'm a 12-month special ed, so I'm there all the time.
Were they trying to close some of those year-round schools in Wake County?
They might have been, just to turn them over into a traditional, not closes and close the doors permanently.
Right.
But it's not going to be an easy thing to do because you've got siblings and stuff who might be in middle school who are still on the year-round system. So I think it's going to be a little tougher than just talking.
I have worked in a year-round elementary school, and I truly believe it was the greatest thing since sliced bread.
I would never go back.
Oh, listen, for the adults is one thing, but for the students, whether they were proficient and got to do some exploratory activities or the others who needed remediation, I think it's excellent. I wish one more, but you know, who knows?
Is it additional days or is it 180 stretched across?
It's still 180 stretched.
Yeah, you go 9 weeks in, typically 3 weeks, typically out. Sometimes it turns out to be 4 weeks. So it balances out.
Mm-hmm.
You still have your 180 days. And I mean, we moved from the north. And when my kids found out they were going to year-round school, they were not the happiest kids. They didn't get it. But now my son is a rising senior. So he's been in traditional again, and he stated that he hated it. My daughter, who's going into high school, is a rising freshman. She's like, I am not looking forward to traditional school because they know they've been there.
It's bang, bang, and it gets worse if it's either a block schedule or a 7-period day. They are, but no, I am a fan of the year-round school, especially at the elementary level.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's to me, there's so much that can be gained by having those children in that setting, either for exploratory extension work or if they need to just true remediation. I mean, what does a regular child do in a traditional school setting during the summer? That would be nothing. But in a year-round school, study, remediate, study, remediate, study, remediate. It's a great, I think it's good. I really do. It's easy to understand and to put into place. There are some school systems based on their location that they would never do that. It just won't happen.
We have 4. We have 4 in CMS.
Only 4 year-round schools?
Yeah, I support all 4 of them.
Where's that at, Jeff?
In CMS, we have 4 of them there year-round. 2 of them are 180 stretched, and then 2 of them are actually additional days. I think they have like 195 or 196 or something like that.
I would have thought in Charlotte you would have had more than just 4 schools on a year-round schedule.
No, all 4 of them are in Project Lift.
Lawrence,
It's a massive turnaround effort. So they're all underperforming schools.
but they run on a
I would
tradition.
like to work there.
Say it again.
I would like to work in an underperforming school. That was like coming out of college. Like I said, I'm from up north. I was ready to go work in New York City and change the world. That was my goal.
Okay, guys, I'll invite all of you for Sunday, but I definitely will do it at 8 o'clock. And let me see if I can get some of these things tweaked. Okay?
Thank you.
All right,
All
thank
right,
you.
carry on.
Bye.
Bye now.
Good night.